You won't guess in a million years what Public Order Emergency Commissioner Paul Rouleau had to say about the actions of Justin and his little rascals when it came to implementing the Emergencies Act and dealing with the Freedom Convoy protesters. Come on, can you guess it? Oh, I can't believe it. You guessed it on the first try. That's right. The government was justified in invoking the Emergencies Act last year to clear convoy protests against COVID-19 mandates. But he did give Justin a little old spank on his bottom by adding that the government could have handled some things better. For example, Trudeau's way of talking about the protesters. Does that mean no cookies and milk for Justin, Commissioner Rouleau? In case you didn't know it, Justice Rouleau was handpicked by Trudeau to oversee the inquiry. Why, oh why? Well, maybe it has something to do with the fact that Rouleau has a history as a liberal activist and worked with former Prime Minister John Turner. Nah, that can't be it. I'm sure it was his stalwart impartiality. In response to the newly released Public Order Emergency Commissioner's report, Justin, employing his full acting prowess, said he regretted calling Freedom Convoy protesters a small fringe minority. He really wished he'd called them what he was thinking instead. Commissioner Rouleau wrote that calling them a small fringe minority and making other disparaging comments served to energize the protesters, hardening their resolve, and further embittering them toward government authorities. I'm thinking old Justin and his cronies had given lots of reasons for the protesters to feel embittered towards government well before that, Paul. Trudeau said he has reflected on that over the past months, not just following the release of the commissioner's report. No siree, reflecting deeply. I wish I had phrased it differently, he went on to say after the report came out. I believe him. After all, think how torn up he must have been since then, given it's taken him so long to finally come up with, he regretted calling Freedom Convoy protesters a small fringe minority. Now that's a sincere apology if I've ever heard one. He said many of the protesters were just hurting and worried and wanting to be heard. Wanting to be heard? The audacity of these deplorables. Why, it's almost as if they thought they lived in a democracy. Doubling down on his apology, Justin, still had nothing but scorn for a very small number of people in this country who deliberately spread misinformation and disinformation that led to Canadians' deaths. You're right, Justin. How dare they? Don't they realize that's the government's job? Justin went on to say, I do not withdraw what I said about that small group, he said, but I do regret that my comments on that small group might have been depicted as an attack on protesters, generally people who wanted to exercise their freedom of speech. A freedom they are free to exercise when I say so, all right? Okay, I added that last part, but kind of true, no? Two Liberal MPs in February 2022 said they believed the issue of the pandemic policy had become politicized by the federal government and criticized their government for its divisive tone on the issue. Former Liberal Finance Minister Bill Morneau also said last month that vaccine mandates shouldn't have been used as a political wedge during the 2021 election. Man, nothing gets past these rocket scientists, huh? During his press conference, Trudeau said that the use of the Emergencies Act to clear convoy protests was a last resort. I guess that's what happens when you skip the first resorts, Justin. You know, ones like consultation, deliberation, debate, discussion, resolution. All you're left with is a last resort. Our job as a government is always to keep people safe, and invoking the Emergencies Act was the necessary thing to do to remove the threat and to protect people, Trudeau went on to say. I mean, after all, how do we know that the convoy protesters who were feeding the homeless were actually food safe certified, huh? The Emergencies Act provided us with more tools to safely bring the illegal blockades and occupations to an end. Because me and my government tools weren't enough. You got me? Okay, I added that part as well. He also noted that there are lessons to be learned for everyone involved, including all levels of government and law enforcement agencies. He couldn't quite recall what they were at the moment, but he'd soon be striking up another commission to look into those, so not to worry. Rouleau said it shouldn't have gotten to the point that the Emergencies Act needed to be invoked. He said that there were a series of policing failures throughout the events, and that there was a failure of federalism as well. I think you meant to say failures of federalism, plural, Paul. Trudeau said his government will continue to do everything we can to work collaboratively across orders of governments. I think there are, Trudeau, anyway. I think there are reflections for other orders of government as well as to what they can draw from this commissioner's report. And I certainly recommend all of my fellow First Ministers to read this report carefully, he said, after which they should give it to the first homeless person they see, as they need something to burn in order to keep warm. Okay, I added that part too. Rouleau set a timeline of 6 months for the government to respond to his recommendations, which include revising the Emergencies Act. Trudeau said he is committed to meeting that deadline, unless, of course, it conflicts with the summer vacation. Regarding the freezing of protesters' bank accounts, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance Chrystia Freeland, almost as equally as remorseful as Justin, said, "Our overriding objective, of course, was to end the illegal blockades and occupation. It was to do so without violence, without anyone being hurt, and the economic measures were a tool that really helped make that happen. Since the loss of their jobs obviously wasn't enough." Okay, she didn't say that, but come on, you were thinking, she was thinking it. Rouleau said these measures were warranted overall, but criticized the absence of any discretion related to freezing assets and the failure to provide a clear way for individuals to have their assets unfrozen when they were no longer engaged in illegal conduct. I get it. Push them down, kick them around a bit, but don't leave them there bleeding on the ground. Give them a hand up. So humane. Freeland said Rouleau recognized that work was done urgently at the time and was being done between the government and law enforcement bodies and banks to ensure that there was a process in place to unfreeze the accounts. Yup, we were sending up smoke signals back and forth between all of us just as fast as we could to freeze those accounts to move things right along. In closing, she said, "In the very horrible event that this ever has to happen again, for sure there are some lessons for us." Is that a threat, a promise, or both, Chrystia? Anyway, thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Please post any comments you have in the comment section. You can always follow me on my Rumble or my Locals account. If you haven't subscribed to either channel, please do so, especially Rumble, because, YouTube, they're a little sensitive. As well, check out some of my past videos, and I will see you next time.